I feel so sad. Why is everything so hard? I just want to feel better.
The Joo family estate rose above Songbukdong like a fortress dressed as a palace. White stone walls, black iron gates, a fountain that ran even in winter, because Joo Tae-min had once said silence bothered him more than the cold. Bodyguards stood at every corner of the property, watching a threat that never came, because the only danger inside that house now was the quiet. Tae-min sat in his study with a glass of untouched Macallan sweating a ring onto his desk. In his hand was a photograph, his wife, Se-yeon, laughing at their wedding, her hand pressed flat against his chest like she was trying to feel his heartbeat through the fabric. 3 days. 3 days since he'd told her to pack her things and go. 3 days since he'd stood in the foyer and said the words that ended everything. I'm marrying someone else. You have until morning. She hadn't cried. That was the part that still unsettled him. She had simply nodded, gone upstairs, and by sunrise, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. Nothing but an empty closet and a wedding ring left on the nightstand like a returned gift. A knock interrupted him. His right hand, Deputy O, stepped in with his usual composure cracked at the edges. Sir, the Beck family is asking for a decision on the merger. They've called 4 times today. Tell them I'm thinking. You've been thinking for 3 days. Tae-min didn't look up. Tell them what I said. O hesitated at the door, the way a man hesitates when he's about to say something he knows he shouldn't. Sir, do you regret it? The silence that followed lasted long enough that O nearly apologized and left. Then Tae-min spoke, quiet and hollow. I don't know, but some part of him already did. If you like second-chance romance stories of this nature, the kind that leaves you at the edge of your seat, click that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you are listening from. We want to send you some love. Now let us get back to the story. 200 kilometers south, in a rented one-room apartment above a laundromat in Busan, a woman named Se-yeon sat on a thin mattress with a baby girl asleep against her chest. The apartment smelled like fabric softener and instant coffee. There was no marble here, no chandeliers, no silent men with earpieces standing outside doors. Just a second-hand crib, a window with a crack in the corner, and her daughter's small, even breathing. No one will ever make you feel unwanted, Se-yeon whispered into the baby's hair. I promise you that. Her phone buzzed against the floor. Unknown number. She let it ring itself into silence, then powered it off completely and held her daughter tighter, as though the phone itself might reach through the screen and pull the child away from her. Back in Seoul, the dining hall of the Joo estate was set for a family that no longer sat there. 8 chairs, 8 place settings, and Tae-min alone at the head of the table, staring at the seat across from him. Se-yeon's seat, untouched since the morning she left. He remembered, only a week before all of it fell apart, her voice light and hopeful. Will you actually come home for dinner tonight? His answer, careless in hindsight, I'm busy. Her smile hadn't wavered. I'll wait anyway. No one was waiting for him now. His mother, Madame Joo, entered without announcement, the way she always did, as if the house still answered to her more than to her son. She looked at the untouched food, then at him. So this is what you wanted. He said nothing. You traded your wife for a woman with a bigger dowry and a smaller heart. She walked closer, each step deliberate. And now you can't even eat. Mother, do you even know where Se-yeon went? He froze. That question landed harder than he expected. You don't, do you? It wasn't a question the second time. Madame Joo shook her head slowly, the disappointment in her eyes worse than any anger could have been. I warned you the day you brought that Beck girl into this house. I told you some things, once broken, don't come back simply because you finally want them to. She turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway, delivering the line that would follow him into every sleepless hour that came after. One day, Tae-min, you will search this entire country for the woman you told to leave, and you will pray she's still willing to be found. That night, unable to sleep, Tae-min wandered into the walk-in closet that had once been Se-yeon's. Empty, all of it down to the last hanger, except for a single small envelope tucked in the back corner of a drawer, as if she'd meant for him to find it eventually, just not right away. His hands weren't steady as he opened it. Inside was a tiny knitted bracelet, the kind made for an infant's wrist, pale yellow with a small wooden bead threaded through it. Attached by a ribbon was a folded note in Se-yeon's handwriting. He read it once. Then again, because his mind refused to accept it the first time. One day, our daughter will ask why her father chose someone else. The glass in his other hand slipped from his fingers and shattered against the floor, and he didn't notice, didn't care, because the only thing in the world that existed in that moment was one word: daughter. He sat down hard on the closet floor, note in one hand, tiny bracelet in the other, and for the first time since he'd built an empire out of fear and control, Joo Tae-min felt something he had no defense against: helplessness. He pressed the intercom with a shaking hand. Oh, my office. Now. Deputy O arrived within 90 seconds. Take charge as always, until he saw his employer's face, pale, unraveling, nothing like the man who had once ordered a rival's entire supply chain dismantled without blinking. Sir, when exactly did Se-yeon leave the house? 3 days ago, sir, at dawn. Did anyone follow her? Did anyone see where she went? No, sir. She left no trace. We assumed... Oh, caught himself. You assumed what? We assumed she didn't want to be found. Tae-min's jaw tightened. Find her anyway. I don't care what it costs. Every investigator we have, every contact, every favor owed to this family, I want it spent on this. And the Beck family, sir? The engagement dinner is scheduled for. Cancel it. Oh, blinked. Genuinely stunned for the first time in years of service. Cancel the engagement, sir? I said cancel it. In Busan, Se-yeon sat by the window watching rain streak down the glass while her daughter slept in her arms. The apartment held nothing of value except the two of them, and somehow that made it feel more like a home than the mansion ever had. You will never have to fight for anyone's love, she murmured to the sleeping child. Not the way I did. Her best friend Han let herself in with 2 bags of groceries and the particular scowl she reserved for worry disguised as irritation. You didn't eat again. I'm not hungry. You need to eat, Se-yeon. I'm fine. Han set the bags down and sat beside her anyway, quiet for a long moment before asking the question that had been sitting between them for 3 days. Does he know? No. Will you tell him? Ever. Se-yeon looked down at her daughter's small, peaceful face. He chose someone else over me. I won't let my daughter grow up in a house where she's a complication instead of a child. Back in Seoul, the search machine that was the Joo organization moved fast and found nothing. Se-yeon's old apartment. Empty, keys returned. Lease terminated weeks in advance, as if she'd been planning her exit long before the night he ended things. Her old workplace, she'd resigned quietly a month prior, telling no one where she was going. Her family, estranged and unhelpful even if they weren't. Tae-min stood at his office window overlooking the glittering sprawl of the city he controlled and realized, for the first time, that finding one woman was proving harder than dismantling 3 rival organizations combined. His mother entered without knocking, as she always did. I heard you're looking for her. He didn't deny it. What will you do if you find her? Bring her home. Madame Joo's expression didn't soften. Home. You think it's that simple? You broke that girl's heart in front of the entire household staff. You humiliated her for a woman with better business connections. And now you think regret 3 days later erases 3 years of neglect. He said nothing because there was nothing to say that wouldn't sound like an excuse. That evening, an envelope slid under Se-yeon's apartment door in Busan. No return address. Inside, a single typed line. He knows about the child. Se-yeon's hands went cold. At the exact same hour, across the country, Tae-min's chief investigator delivered a report that made the room feel smaller than it was. Sir, it isn't only your wife we've been tracking. Speak plainly. The investigator took a breath. There's financial evidence, a private pediatrician, a birth registration filed under a modified name. Sir, your wife has been raising a child. Your child. Since before she left. Tae-min closed his eyes slowly, and in that darkness, his greatest regret became the single most consuming secret of his life. The rain in Seoul finally stopped, but the Joo estate stayed cold. Tae-min stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his office while his phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from shareholders, from the Beck family's furious patriarch, from politicians who wanted his signature on things that no longer mattered to him. He ignored every one of them. There was only one name that mattered now. Sir, the quarterly board meeting begins in 15 minutes, O said carefully, entering with a tablet he already suspected would go unused. Cancel it. The directors have already arrived, sir. Then let them wait. O had worked for Tae-min for 6 years. He had seen him ruthless in negotiations, seen him cold in the face of betrayal from men who'd once called him brother. He had never once seen him distracted, Until now. That same morning, Madame Joo sat in her private sitting room, a cup of untouched tea cooling beside her, watching her son's convoy pull out of the gate from her window. She reached for her phone and dialed a number she'd memorized rather than saved. "He's leaving the estate again," she said once the call connected. The voice on the other end was calm, careful. "He's getting closer than we expected." "Good," Madame Joo said. That was always the point. And if he finds her before he understands what he's asking her to forgive, Madame Joo's gaze didn't leave the window. Then he'll lose her twice, and this time I won't be the one to warn him. She set the phone down without waiting for a reply, and for the first time in 3 days, something close to a smile crossed her face, not for her son's sake, but for the granddaughter she had not yet been permitted to meet. Meanwhile, in Busan, Se-yeon dressed her daughter in a small cream-colored outfit, and for a moment the fear of the last 2 days lifted enough for her to enjoy her daughter's delighted giggling at her own reflection in a spoon. Then her phone buzzed. A no number again, but this time, not a message. A photograph. The front gate of her apartment building, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching. She closed every curtain in the apartment and locked the door twice, pulling her daughter against her chest as if her arms alone could form a wall. "No one is taking you from me," she whispered. "Not now. Not ever." Hours later, an elderly cafe owner near Se-yeon's old neighborhood in Seoul recognized him in the moment he walked through her door, flanked by 2 men who clearly didn't belong among the mismatched chairs and chipped ceramic mugs. "You're the husband," she said before he could introduce himself. He didn't correct her. "She used to come here? Every morning. Alone at first." The old woman studied him for a long moment. Later, she came with a baby. His heart pounded harder than it had in a boardroom filled with armed rivals. "Did she ever say anything about me?" The woman set down the mug she'd been wiping and studied him a moment longer, as though deciding whether he'd earned the answer. Han appeared behind Se-yeon, arms crossed, unwilling to soften just because the man in front of her looked wrecked. "She is in danger," Han said. "Someone's been sending photographs. A gift box. Notes about the child." Tae-min's expression shifted. The businessman returning, calculating, protective in an entirely different register now. "Someone besides me knew about her before I did?" "Someone's known longer than you," Se-yeon said quietly. "Which means someone's been watching us since before she was even born." He looked down at the small velvet box still in his hand, suddenly aware of how small an apology it was next to everything he'd missed. The pregnancy, the birth, the first laugh, the first steps he'd likely already lost. "I'm not asking you to forgive 3 days of silence," he said, "or 3 years of choosing everything except you. I know I don't get to walk back in here and undo it." He held the box out anyway. "But whoever is watching her, watching both of you, I need you to let me protect you. Not as your husband. As her father, if that's all you'll allow me to be." Se-yeon studied him for a long, unreadable moment, her daughter's small fingers curling around a strand of her hair. "There's something you should know," she finally said. "The note that came tonight, the handwriting wasn't a stranger's." "I recognized it." Tae-min went still. "Whose was it?" Se-yeon's eyes lifted to his, steady despite the fear underneath. "Your mother's." The silence that followed swallowed the hallway whole. "That's not possible," Tae-min said, though even as he spoke it, pieces he hadn't let himself examine began sliding into place, his mother's sudden, pointed questions about where he was searching. Her prophecy, delivered with far too much certainty for a warning. Her insistence, 3 nights ago, that he would one day search the whole country for the wife he'd let go. She hadn't been warning him. She'd been guiding him, testing whether he deserved to find them at all. "Think about it," Se-yeon pressed, her voice low so it wouldn't carry to the sleeping child on her hip. "Who else would have known to leave a note about our daughter using words like she'll ask why her father chose someone else? I never told your mother where I went. I never told her about the baby. But she found out anyway, didn't she? The way she finds out everything in that house." Tae-min's mind raced back through the last 3 days. His mother appearing in doorways without knocking, always at the exact moment his resolve wavered, always with a sentence sharp enough to cut but never quite enough to stop him. "Do you even know where she is? You think it's that simple? One day you'll search the whole world." Every word had sounded like judgment. He realized now it had also been a map, laid down one morning at a time, daring him to follow it. She could have told me outright, he said, more to himself than to Se-yeon. Why do this instead? Why the photographs, the envelopes, the fear? Because telling you outright wouldn't have proven anything, Se-yeon said. Anyone can be told where to go. She wanted to see whether you'd actually come, whether you'd fight for it, or wait for someone to hand it to you the way everything else in your life has been handed to you. The accusation landed exactly where she meant it to. He didn't argue. Se-yeon stepped back, opening the door wider, not quite an invitation, but no longer a refusal either. If your mother has known where I am this whole time, she said, then everything that's happened these past 3 days, every message, every photograph, every knock on my door, happened because she wanted it to. Tae-min's jaw tightened, torn between fury and something dangerously close to gratitude. Whatever game his mother had orchestrated, it had done what 3 days of frantic searching hadn't. It had put him back in front of the one door that mattered. He stepped over the threshold for the first time, close enough now to see the small, steady rise and fall of his daughter's breathing against her mother's shoulder. Then I have 2 people to thank, he said quietly. And one to answer to. Se-yeon didn't smile. Not yet. But she didn't close the door either. Come in, she said. But you're not staying. Not tonight. Maybe not for a long while. You broke something, Tae-min, and a velvet box isn't going to put it back together. I know. But, she added, glancing down at their daughter, who had reached out and wrapped one small hand around his sleeve without either adult telling her to, she doesn't know any of it yet. Maybe it's time she got the chance to decide who her father is, instead of only hearing who he used to be. For the first time since the night he'd told her to leave, Joo Tae-min allowed himself to hope that 3 days of searching might, eventually, become the first 3 days of something worth rebuilding. Outside, unnoticed by either of them, a black sedan idled at the end of the street, Madame Joo watching from the back seat, satisfied, already planning what would come next. Today's story leaves us here. If you want to see more interesting episodes of this story, click that subscribe button, and do not fail to share your thoughts in the comments. We love you all.